Picture this. It's November 6th, 2024. Donald Trump is back in the White House. The world is buzzing, markets are reacting, and everyone's wondering, what's next for the global economy? Will we see a second wave of trade wars with China? Could the dollar lose its dominant status? Or maybe a surge in oil production? Stay tuned as we break down the big economic shifts. And if you're ready for more insights into global politics, hit subscribe and join us here at Mwaki Insights. Let's dive right into one of Trump's favorite topics, trade. Remember the tariffs? Well, they might be making a comeback. Trump has promised to get tough on China, calling for an economic decoupling. And what does that mean for global markets? First off, tariffs could reappear on Chinese imports, everything from electronics to clothing. This wouldn't just impact Chinese manufacturers, US companies and consumers would feel the sting with higher prices. But here's where it gets really interesting. China might retaliate by restricting exports of essential rare earth minerals, critical for technology from smartphones to electric cars. Imagine the price hikes on these goods. Other countries like Japan and South Korea could also be caught in the crossfire, leading to a potential shift in tech manufacturing to places like India or Southeast Asia. This is a trade war with more than two players now. Trump is a big advocate of US energy independence, specifically through fossil fuels. If he wins, we're likely to see a renewed push for oil, gas and coal production. Think pipelines, offshore drilling and fewer regulations. For American consumers, that could mean lower gas prices in the short term. But here's the kicker. It might make the US a less attractive partner for countries focused on green energy. Like many in the EU, we could see a widening rift between the US and Europe on climate policies, with Europe doubling down on renewables and carbon reduction, while the US goes its own way. This could have ripple effects globally, especially in oil-dependent economies like Saudi Arabia and Russia. If US oil floods the market, prices could drop, putting pressure on these nations to rethink their own energy strategies. Now let's talk de-dollarization, a big word with even bigger implications. Trump's America First approach could accelerate the trend of countries moving away from the dollar in global trade. China, Russia, and several Middle Eastern countries have already begun trading in local currencies. If Trump pushes allies like the EU to pick sides in trade wars, it might push more countries to explore alternatives like the yuan or even digital currencies. Imagine this, a world where oil is traded in yuan or the euro. This would reduce demand for the dollar, impacting everything from US inflation to investment inflows. While the dollar wouldn't lose its reserve currency status overnight, this shift could weaken the U.S. quote, its ability to influence global markets. Trump has often promised tax cuts and deregulation, which could stimulate growth, but it might also increase the national debt. Think of it as putting the economy on a sugar rush. Short-term growth? Sure. But it could lead to inflationary pressure and higher interest rates down the road. For Americans, that might mean pricier mortgages, higher credit card rates, and a bump in everyday costs. The Fed would be caught in a tough spot, balancing between growth and inflation. And if Trump pushes for lower rates, we could see a weak dollar, which sounds good for exports, but could spike import costs, affecting everything from food to electronics. Trump has repeatedly called on NATO allies to pay more for their own defense. A second term could bring renewed pressure on Europe to increase their military budgets, potentially even shaking NATO's unity. Some European countries, especially those bordering Russia, could feel insecure if the US takes a step back. This might force European countries to develop independent defense capabilities, which could reshape the defense industry. European countries like France and Germany might push for a stronger EU defense framework, reducing reliance on the US. This wouldn't just shift NATO, it could reconfigure military alliances globally. Trump's approach to China would likely take the decoupling strategy to the next level. We're talking about encouraging US companies to bring manufacturing back home or relocate to allied countries. For consumers, this might mean higher prices as companies absorb new supply chain costs. But for the US, it's a question of economic independence from China. This decoupling could benefit countries like Vietnam, India and Mexico, which could take on some of China's manufacturing role. And globally, this shift could cause supply chain ripples, potentially disrupting everything from smartphones to cars. Trump's stance on immigration is no secret. He wants to keep it tightly controlled. But here's the thing. The US depends on immigrant labor, especially in sectors like agriculture, healthcare, and tech. If immigration is restricted, these industries could face labor shortages, potentially raising costs for everything from farm produce to hospital care. On the flip side, reduced access to work visas might push skilled talent towards Canada, Europe, and Asia. Imagine Silicon Valley losing top talent to Toronto or Berlin. This shift could affect America's standing as a global innovation hub. Trump's America First policy could take a new turn in 2024, possibly leading to a more multipolar world order. With the US withdrawing from multilateral agreements and shifting away from traditional alliances, countries like China, Russia, and even India may move to form stronger regional blocs that operate independently of American influence. Picture this. Instead of a world dominated by one or two superpowers, we could see economic hubs emerge in Asia, Europe, and Latin America, each setting its own terms for trade, finance, and technology. This isn't just a political shift, it's an economic realignment that could reshape everything from investment flows to currency stability. And with de-dollarization on the rise, we could even see countries reduce their reliance on the US dollar for trade, opting instead for regional currencies or new digital currency systems. This means that traditional American financial leverage might lose its power, leading to a redefined global economy. So what does a Trump victory mean for the global economy? From revived trade wars and decoupling from China to the potential rise of a multipolar world, it's clear that Trump's policies could bring about seismic shifts in the way global economics work. We could see new alliances, challenges to the dollar, and a push toward energy independence that impacts markets worldwide. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive on Milwaukee Insights. If you found this analysis informative, don't forget to like the video and share it with others who'd find it valuable. And for the latest insights on global politics and economics, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us bring you more content on the issues that shape our world. Thanks for watching.